Good evening. What are we doing? Okay, here's what we're doing. Today we're just going to kind of walk around and look at some projects in progress and talk about my plans for the coming year, like projects and video projects and stuff like that. And let's see. Oh, first off, I did launch my Patreon campaign quietly a couple days ago. And it's not exactly what I wanted it to be. I actually haven't recorded a video yet, but I'm glad I sat on it for a while because it just took me a while to process what I wanted to do and didn't want to do. For a while I had myself all spun out with all these different like reward tiers, and at some point I was like, wait a minute, I'm just creating like tons of work for myself, and part of the point is to buy me time, not, take up more of my time. So there's not a lot in the way of like reward tiers. There's a couple of things for yeah, well, whatever, you can go check it out, and I'll probably modify that as I go and all that stuff. Anyway, yeah, it's patreon.com/skillcult. I'm happy to get feedback from anybody on that, and eventually I'll record like an introduction video and stuff like that. But most of the people that are going there, I mean, have already been watching my content for a while, and honestly I just think my content speaks for itself, and they're probably already, don't need a lot of convincing. Either they have money to help or they don't. So again, my reasoning for Patreon, really, what I really think about is that it's a way for you to help me help everybody by getting out a bunch of free content. At this point, that pretty much means just helping me meet my basic expenses, like fixing my car, dental, food, paying for the internet, web hosting, stuff like that. Once we get that out of the way, there's like equipment, land payments, special projects, or we can just keep going from there. So anyway, that's up. Let's walk around the property and look at some projects in progress and talk about, I'll just use that as like talking points for what's coming for the next year. As you can see, my firewood pile is dwindled quite a bit. That's because I don't have a door, and I took it off to make a new door, and I just haven't done it yet, so I have like blankets hanging up. So I'll be out cutting some more wood here pretty soon. Another chance to practice with my axe, right? Remember the lime kiln? And I left it uncovered by accident, and it started falling apart in the rain, which is too bad because I was going to make charcoal with it. But it's kind of interesting to get to glimpse inside of it here. Let's kind of take a closer look here. So for anyone who doesn't know already, this was a kiln used to burn lime. So I burned seashells at a pretty high temperature, add water, and that makes lime, and you can use it for building like plaster and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff. Anyway, watch the videos on that. But the calcium in the lime lowers the melting temperature of the clay. So the clay actually melts into this glass like slag there. Isn't that cool? And then the clay underneath that, to a certain depth, is fired. So you can see this red stuff is fired. This stuff is maybe fired a little, but not that much. And then the outside here still has a lot of charcoal from the grass, because this kiln was made with about half straw and half clay. So this is the portion where the charcoal hasn't turned to ash. Everything here from this brown to the red, the charcoal has burned up completely. So this is great for the garden. Burnt clay like this has its own special properties, similar to charcoal, I think. And then this has the charcoal in it still. And then I'm sure the slag's fine too, plus there's bits of lime left here as well. So all of this stuff is going to get pulverized and put into the garden. Now you can see in there, those are little strings of ash right there from where the grass burned up and left the ashes behind. Ash also has a lot of nutrient in it, and garden plants will grow their roots into all these little pores right here, and microbes will go and live in there, and there'll be all kinds of stuff going on in there. Pretty neat. And then it's only really the very outside that is still, you can see it's a little charred here, but this is just clay and straw on the very outside. I'm not sure what's next with the lime burning. I may build a bigger kiln pretty soon here, and something maybe a little more permanent. Okay, there's Frankentree in the background there, For anyone who hasn't seen that, that's an apple tree. It has around 150 varieties of apples grafted onto it. That's why it has all those little tags. This is a tree that I grafted 5 different varieties on. It's all early apples like Chestnut Crab, Williams Pride, Kerry Pippin. It's grown for 2 seasons now, and it should produce some fruit this year. We'll see. It should have last year, but we just had really bad pollination because there were almost no honeybees at all. So that's what 2 years of growth looks like on a tree that was completely cut back to just the main stem. And yeah, this year it probably will produce some fruit depending on pollination. I can also pollinate it by hand. So anyway, this provides talking points because I want to get a bunch of grafting videos done this season, and that means very soon. I want to do at least basic grafting videos and some basic support for grafting, because I'm always talking about these systems and, you know, doing multi-grafted trees, which I think more people should do, but I don't really have the resources to refer people to. So I hope to do a bunch of grafting videos, and if possible, do one on Frankentreeing, you know, on making these crazy multi-grafted trees. They don't have to be this crazy, but, you know, a tree that size, you can really easily fit 30 to 40 varieties on there. And it's so much better in so many ways, and we'll talk more about that very soon. Here's the deer hide we're tanning for the pocket strops for the Cordwood Challenge, which, by the way, we have a fair amount of people doing it. I think, you know, there must be at least 5 or 6. I haven't kept very good track, but I'm starting to write people down now. You can check out, you know, Tim at Oxbow Farms already did a cord, and it looks like he's busy in the woods starting another cord, I think is what's going on. David Jones, is it David Jones 06, I think? She's improving really quick. She just jumped right in there, man. That woman's got some heart. And Flatland Woodsman is doing it, and there's a couple other people. Pretty soon I'll list all of them. But here's the hide here, and it's fermenting away in here, doing its thing. And there's really no reason for me to open it, but we'll be getting into this in another, you know, within 4 weeks probably. For now it seems to be just fine the way it is, so we'll just leave it to do its work. That should be interesting when we get that out. And in general, I'm going to try to get some more tanning videos out this year. I haven't got as many as I'd like. I know there's a lot of interest, and I know there's some people waiting for specific ones, like Nimrod's waiting for my rolling, whatchamacallit, the graining board. Nimrod's waiting for the graining board video, and I need to get back on those experiments I was doing with all the different tanning materials. So I'll try to do that pretty soon and get some other basic tanning videos out this year. I think this year what I'll do is concentrate on a few basic things, like for instance scraping tools. Like these, getting the tools together can be a real roadblock for people, because I can show, you know, all the stuff I'm showing, but if you don't have the right scraper and you don't have a beam and some of these other tools, then you're kind of at a standstill until you get that together. So I'll try to cover some material like that, and that'll make it easier to patch together some of the other information I've put out and actually get going with some tanning. So I got a couple strings set up here on the ground because I was kind of just roughly outlining this as a possible blacksmith shop. So this would be, I mean, I've always wanted a blacksmith shop, and the best I've ever had, besides sharing, you know, a shop with a friend occasionally, it was really his shop, is maybe like a third of a carport I had once for, you know, 3 or 4 months. So I have all the tools, you know, but they're just kind of laying around, and I'm really a proponent of doing just, you know, seat of the pants, rough blacksmithing with whatever you got. But it's also really nice just to have everything set up with all your tools and have them dry and just be ready to like light the forge and be forging within a few minutes. Because I would like to start prototyping some axes and hatchets, among other things. And to me, that's like a pretty serious undertaking. You know, people have asked me like, well, what would a good hatchet look like to you? Well, you know, I know a lot of things I don't like, and some things I do like, but I'm not going to be able to just sketch that out on a piece of paper and say this is the perfect, you know, all-purpose compromise hatchet. So for me, that's going to involve many prototypes and lots of testing. So I was going to leverage, I just turned 50 2 days ago. What do you think about that? I'm not sure what I think about it, but I know what I'm going to do about it. Nothing. I'm not going to do anything about it because I can't. So anyway, I was turning 50 like a couple days ago, and I thought, well, you know, I could leverage that to get some help from friends to build a blacksmith shop, because that's really what I want to do. I was like, well, what do I want to do for my 50th birthday? Well, I want to build a blacksmith shop. And I've been thinking of this for weeks, but I've actually been really sick. I was having like really bad digestive problems to the point where every time I ate, I would get really sick, and I would like quit eating, and then I'd feel better, and then I'd eat and I'd get sick. It was just terrible. So up until just a few days ago, this was like a major problem. It's getting kind of scary actually. But I started taking something that really seems to just have like wiped it out and helped a lot. So if I can continue feeling good for another week or two, I might go ahead and launch this project. I have a lot of interesting, creative, talented friends that I might call in for help and say, hey, come out for a day or a week or more, whatever you can, and let's bust this thing out. I could throw up a pole structure by myself in a few days probably that would be totally adequate to get started and be forging. But the point of this project is more to build something really cool that utilizes materials and techniques that interest me. For instance, making hydraulic lime for the lower parts of the foundation, burning lime and using that for the mortar to do like a stone stem wall, using the poles that grow here for timber framing, using all hand tools. The roof will be slate. It's going to be a really cool structure. So of course, if I do that, you're going to hear all about it, and I probably wouldn't do it if it didn't make such a great YouTube channel project, to follow along with. And I'm still deciding. I need to be careful what I get myself into basically with this, and I just need a little more time to decide if I'm up for it or not. But this will probably be the site right here. Here's one of the places where I throw all my chips, and got quite a few comments on my cordwood challenge videos, and Tim's had some too, and comments about wasting a lot of wood because of the chips. And you can just use them. I mean, literally, like if I could get truckloads and truckloads of chips like this, I would just be really super happy, because there's all kinds of things I can do with them. Making charcoal, burning lime. Tim's growing mushrooms on his, so there's plenty of uses for them. There's definitely no shortage. And also, waste is a matter of context. So here I have so much wood that needs to be cut, and leaving this stuff in the woods isn't a bad thing. I mean, it just depends on the context, really. It's just food for the forest. I mean, this is made of what trees grow from. So, eventually it'll rot down. It feeds fungus, and, things live underneath it and in it, and bugs eat it, and then eventually it just feeds the forest. So I pick some of my chips up and some I don't. It just depends on the location and whether I remember to. But it literally only takes like 2 or 3 minutes to pick up all the chips from, a medium-sized tree. Oh yeah, and of course they make great kindling. Stone tools that I was just cleaning up something and found these, and they're just out here on this piece of bark to stay safe until they get put away. And some of these are made by me and some are made by other people. I think I made this it's probably signed. Like most of mine are signed with a diamond scribe, but it's pretty hard to find it. You have to look really close. I know I made that day sight. That's a Clovis point. This was made pretty sure by the late Steve Watts, who passed away not too long ago. Great guy. He'll be much missed. This is made by Emery Coons up in central, northeastern Oregon, I guess. He's quite the flint knapper. He grew up near these huge obsidian quarries. I think that's probably one of mine. Well, you can see the difference quite a bit rougher. And this is just an example of a broken Clovis point, because when you take off this flake right here, they break a lot, and like this one did. This one has one good flute right there, one good flake, and then this side it didn't go. And same here, this side is not, well, it's not bad, and this side's pretty lame. I don't know who made that one. Don't know. I have lots of these, you know, in Riker mounts and stuff stashed away here and there. Anyway, I haven't done a lot on primitive technology stuff, but I will do it eventually. Maybe I'll do some this year. I'll try to sprinkle some in at least. I have a pretty extensive background in that area, doing primitive technology, or paleotechnics as we call it. I have a business with my ex-wife called Paleotechnics, and you know, I have quite a bit of stuff to offer regarding that I'll eventually get to. It's a topic of much interest these days, especially with there's a channel called Primitive Technology that's very, very popular and very good, of this guy doing a bunch of really cool stuff. So it's a hot topic right now, and I should probably do some more stuff about it. So there used to be a little trailer up there that I'm turning into tool and hardware storage, and I got it off the knoll there. This is kind of like a little knoll with this single oak tree on it, and I'm trying to get it all the way cleaned off because it's just really ugly, and it's a really pretty knoll. I mean, it just looks really cool here on the property, and it's just all, you know, junk right now. So trying to get that done. But the other cool thing is that the drip line of this tree is planted to daffodils, or like the small, smelly, you know, scented narcissus. And it's planted, they're planted in like a 4-foot swath all the way along the drip line of the tree. So it looks really cool when they bloom, and they bloom for like 2 months long. But one of my projects eventually is to dig all of those bulbs up, mix them together, because there's like 3 or 4 different kinds, and then replant them in about a 6 or 8 foot swath following the drip line of the tree completely all the way around it. So that'll bloom for about probably about 2 months in the late winter and early spring, and it's going to look super cool. Probably won't get to that this year, but eventually. So here are the seedlings we looked at earlier. Each one of these is a genetically unique apple seedling that I grew from a cross between 2 parents that I chose intentionally. There's probably around 120 of them. I had a gopher in here eating them, which is not the end of the world, because if they eat one, I just pull it up and tag it and put it in the fridge until it's time. It actually might be voles that are getting them, but I need to set a trap tonight for that. I just ordered rootstock for these, and pretty soon I'll be cutting each one off, grafting it onto a dwarfing rootstock, and then later on they'll get planted out into permanent rows for trial. So that is happening soon this spring, and I'm probably going to end up having some kind of a work party or something to get that done, because there's going to be a lot of digging and a lot of grafting too. Like I mean, I can handle the grafting, but if I had someone who was actually skilled enough with a knife to be helpful with grafting, I sure wouldn't turn that down. Really, my garden is very weak this year. I just was not able to pull off a decent garden. This is a daikon. Look at the size of that root. Good for busting up the soil. This is what the saffron crocus looked like. Earlier this year I was harvesting saffron, made a video about that. Well, this is what it looks like when it's growing. It's kind of cool. It just grows like hair and makes this big thick mat. Here's our leeks, and these are overdue for thinning. Like, I need to go through here and call out about 50% of these right now and just get rid of everything that's not ideal. You know, I'm going for the most ideal form of leek that I want, which is tall and skinny. Well, it has when we get around to that, I'll tell you exactly what I'm looking for, but I can probably just yank 50% of these right now. I need to find a place to sell them or give them away or something. But they're looking okay. I mean, normally they'd be more giant than this, but they still have time to grow, and they actually will grow quite a bit still this season. Coffee grounds that I've been collecting for some coffee ground experiments this year, and a lot of people are afraid to use coffee grounds because they think they're too acidic. They're excellent fertilizer, so my goal is to set up some experiments that are fairly extreme, basically extreme coffee ground experiments, and see just how far we can push it in terms of using large quantities on different crops and stuff. I don't have the exact experiments outlined yet, but it should be pretty interesting. And for now, I'm just going to keep collecting them. Every time I go to town, I collect more. My neighbors collect them. You know, I drink coffee, so I have mine, and it should be interesting. Here are the starts I made for my fall garden. Don't they look great? Because all my garden has been super neglected because I'm just always working on YouTube videos and projects for that and stuff related to that. So yeah, my food production and actual like subsistence homesteading stuff has suffered a lot because of doing YouTube and stuff, and that's kind of weird for me. Like it's a little bit uncomfortable for me, but I also think that this is what I should be doing, and you know, I think that's an acceptable loss. I would like to maintain it as much as possible, though, just because it's important for me to, you know, kind of maintain the lifestyle as much as possible, and just for credibility, but also just because, you know, it's what produces the content that I produce, you know, like if I'm not doing that, I don't have anything to talk about. Otherwise, it's just all, you know, theory and hot air. So no one wants that. You might remember way back, I was planting fava beans among my pepper plants in some video. Well, here they are. The pepper plants are all dead from frost. You can see the fava beans do not look happy, but they're okay, actually. They're well established. The tops are damaged by snow and frost, but as soon as spring comes here, the roots are already established and these things are going to shoot up. They'll be, you know, 4 to 6 feet tall, and they'll produce lots of fava beans, and it's all good. This is my asparagus patch. If I sound kind of cold and shivery, it's because I am. It's rather chilly out here. It's already freezing, and I don't have that many clothes on, and I'm just standing around talking. So this is my asparagus patch, and I have a plan for an asparagus growing system that's going to use like a couple of different species mixed together. But the idea is to have a asparagus patch that is pretty much maintenance free and just produces asparagus every year without any care. You'll hear about that if I get it together. Now these are the old apple seedlings down here, the oldest ones, and we should have a lot of new fruit in there this coming season. I'm really hoping that we're going to have, you know, dozens of varieties to try out. And I was going to expand this way up the hill to add more rows of seedlings, and I probably have about this many, which is 3 long rows again to plant this year. But I think instead we're going to expand down the hill, which unfortunately means I have to expand this fence yet again, which is probably like the 4th or 5th expansion of this fence. And it's not even a permanent fence, it's a temporary fence. So eventually, look at that. I didn't even know that was there. Let's taste that. So this is a seedling of, well, let me check. I think it's Lady Williams. Yeah, so this is grenadine crossed with Lady Williams. I didn't even know this was here. You can see I put it in this, but I also clothespined it. So if the apple falls off the tree, it won't fall all the way off. And then I get to eat it instead of some mouse or raccoon. What's interesting is it's hard. Lady Williams is my latest apple, and it ripens right about now, usually February 1st. It's awful pretty, actually. I mean, aside from being all scabby, this is scab right here, which is a fungal disease, and that's not good. If it's this susceptible to scab, that's bad news right off the bat. But just the colors and the kind of antique-y look is kind of intriguing. Anyway, what's interesting is it's very hard. So let's try this out. Ready for this? Tastes like it'd make a good cider apple. It's extremely sweet. Pretty flavorful, but really, really sweet. And a lot of tannin. So this has a high tannin content in the skin, like a lot of puckery tannins, like the same thing that makes your coffee and tea kind of puckery. But that could be exacerbated by poor growing conditions because these trees aren't very well cared for, and it just being so stunted and scabby and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was grown out better, if it would be a better dessert apple, but it's actually pretty edible the way it is, and it's extremely high in sugar. The texture, it's not really, it's not crunchy. It's kind of gone mealy a little bit. But hey, you know, it's almost the end of January, so yeah, it tastes pretty good though. This could be a really good cider apple. I'll keep an eye on it. There's some firewood I was cutting down in the ravine there. What's interesting about this tree, if we count back, right here, that's when I moved here. Isn't that crazy? So this was like, you know, 2 inches in diameter or something when I moved here. You know, that goes to show you how fast trees can grow. I think some people don't really understand that, and that there's always, you know, new trees growing up. So anyway, down here, down this hillside is where I'd be expanding the apple breeding project. And there's a lot of room down there. I mean, I think I could end up fitting 600 to 800 trees in if I just keep going down here every 6 feet, like a row every 6 feet. There's a ravine on that side, there's woods at the bottom, and then there's another ravine on the other side. So that's kind of my limitations in that space right there. The reason I'm not expanding up the hill with the apples down there and like kind of making rows up the hill here is because I've been talking to some friends who want to start a tannery, and we've been talking about maybe starting a micro tannery here as kind of a trial run for their eventual micro tannery project. That would probably go right here where these little rows of trees are. Of course, those would have to go. This isn't just a tannery. It would be, to me, it would be like a tannery laboratory. That's the part I'm interested in. They're interested in, you know, kind of getting a feel for what their eventual, it's like they say you should build your dream house twice. So this would be the testing ground for them to figure out how they would build a tannery to run like a very small commercial tannery, basically. But for me also, it's part of a project I've been working on in my head and doing some writing. What would you call it? It's like an integrated web of industries and businesses and pursuits centered around a tannery as the hub. So they would involve like agriculture and basically using the products of the tannery that are not leather. So I normally would call them waste products, but they're anything but. Every one of them is extremely useful. And so it would be like a network or web of industries that would be surrounding the tannery as the kind of like the core. So this would be a chance to work out and test some ideas around that whole idea. And I originally came up with it for this area, but it could probably be transferred to a lot of other areas too. And I just think it's a really cool idea. So that's part of my motivation to do it. But anyway, we'll be talking with them about that later on, and maybe they might come and stay here for a while and just feel out how that whole thing works out and talk about it some more. I've been grabbing wood all over the place. We've had a lot of storms. This was a fir tree that fell down. Some oak logs, also storm damage. Been splitting some of these round fir logs like that. I've been splitting into rails for making charcoal, just using an axe. Kind of split them lengthwise in half and then split them again. All this stuff is going to be charcoal, all that. And there's more, there's lots more out in the woods. There's a huge pile of limbs right there. I'm hoping to make, 500 gallons or more of charcoal this year. And most of that will end up being used for some kind of experiment, some experiments or other regarding biochar. All right, I hope that gives you some idea of some of the stuff I'll be doing this year. I'm freezing my butt off, so I'm gonna grab my camera and take you with me to go mushroom hunting, because In order to go mushroom hunting, I have to hike up and down very steep hills, and that's going to get my butt warmed up pretty fast. And I think the black trumpets are out, and I should have been out getting them for the last, week or two at least, because they are only good every few years, and they're the main host tree that they associate with is dying from a disease, so they're dying really fast too. So pretty soon I may not have any black trumpets to harvest, and who knows, this may be the last really good year ever. I haven't really been out enough to even know if they're out, but I've seen a couple and I heard that they're out, so we're going to grab a basket and go do that. Yeah, a lot of interest in a series on my road and building graveled, country unpaved roads. That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to doing that whole series, and I've wanted to do it for a long time, and I'm just glad that there's a lot of interest, because it is a really interesting topic. And I guess I always expect people not to be that interested in it, but it is very interesting. In the meantime, if you want more information, you can read the manual online for free. It's a PDF, and you can download it at Pacific Watershed Associates. It's probably pacificwatershadassociates.com, but if you just search Pacific Watershed Associates or Handbook for Forest and Ranch Roads, I believe is what it's called. You'll be able to find it with that information, and there's a PDF version of that, and you can start reading that for a primer basically. But I think it'll be really interesting for me to give you my version and show you my road and my experience, because this road has been in place for, 8 years or something like that. Hasn't been touched by a grader since it was put in, and I can show you the things that I'm glad I did. Really, it turned out amazing. There's very few things I would have done significantly differently, except for one part where the neighbor, it was kind of weird dealing with the neighbor. We didn't do everything that I wanted to do. So anyway, the road, yes. And here it is. Notice that this entire section has no ditch. There's no ditch on the inside over here, the uphill side. And that is true for hundreds of feet. That was a great decision, because that means I don't have to maintain hundreds of feet of ditch. If there was ditch all along here, and they tried to cut a ditch, like I had to stop them. In fact, they cut a ditch all the way down this side right here when I wasn't looking, which was like 5 minutes, and I made them fill it back in. Good move, because every year this ditch would be filling up with all these leaves and sticks right here, clogging up and then dumping water onto the road in large quantities. So as it is, since it slopes outward, the water just hits the road and it runs off evenly in an even sheet off the side of the road without gathering. The more water you gather in one place, the more you have like a bunch of energy that the water can then, destroy things with. So the problem with the ditch is that you're concentrating water, so you're concentrating energy, and then when the water jumps the ditch, it cuts grooves in your road and screws everything up. So this way the water is just constantly sheeting off the road without building up any kinetic energy. Okay, I'm kind of out of breath, so let's go get some mushrooms. Hey, here's an orange chanterelle. Very nice, it looks like. Yeah, that's a good one. There's another one here. Very nice, nice and meaty, not too dirty as they go. It's a good start. Well, it is definitely not a good year for black trumpets. I found one little cluster, that's it. So I may go out again into some different areas. Obviously there's some out there. In a really good year, I would have filled this basket a while ago. And in just a good year, it'd probably be at least half full. But I might go into some other areas. Also, other areas of the county might really be good this year, even though it's not good right here. Sometimes you don't even have to go that far, but for whatever reason, they'll just be doing better in a different area. All right, signing off then, I guess.